Hey, this is She's Making Something, and today we are making super simple superhero logo t-shirts for Halloween. We have these basic shirts that I got from Hobby Lobby. We have the red one, is going to end up being Mrs. Incredible, and we have a blue one that's going to be Superman. I also have a smaller red one that's going to be Wonder Woman. And we have fabric here. We've got gold for the Wonder Woman logo. We've got yellow and red and black for Superman. We will also need all of those plus orange for Mrs. Incredible. It's all very bright, very primary colored. So to make our logos, I printed these out. I had to mess with sizing and formatting, but these are our logos, and we're going to use these as our pattern templates. And since we're going to be cutting through the paper, we're using our paper scissors and not my fabric scissors. So now we've got to do Superman and the Incredibles, which are a little trickier because they're multiple colors. So this black here, I'm going to leave that black, and I also want this black here to show through. These are all yellow, including this little guy right here. He's going to be annoying. And this is all red. So I'm going to have to cut out a solid red, yellow, and black out of that. For this one, these are orange. This is black. Forgive my handwriting. This is yellow. This is yellow, and this dot right here, this little dot is white. And that's the colors of the logo. But I don't want to cut out like all these shapes and try to piece it together. So I got to build it kind of like a 3D puzzle. So you have this big oval, which is orange, this smaller black shape, which will kind of connect. And then I have the yellow circle with the white circle on top of it. So it's built up in layers. Like this one's going to be a black diamond with the red and then the yellow pieces kind of sandwiched on top of this big black diamond. So I think we'll start with the Incredibles first. So we'll put Superman aside. So we want to start with our orange, because that is our base color. Lay out our orange. I know it's not ironed. It has been washed. It's not ironed yet, but that's okay. And we're going to try to pin this. I want to pin inside the logo because I'm going to be cutting out everything around it. And I don't want my logo to fall off. The tricky part with this one is normally you would cut the entire outside, but since this yellow part sticks out over the orange, I have to figure out, because I don't want to cut off my circle because I need that pattern for later. So I think like what I'm going to do with the black is I'm going to cut around. I'm going to cut around, then I'm going to cut under that. So my cut line is going to go under there. But I'm not going to cut my paper, I'm cutting just the fabric under there. So we have a Superman fabric and an Incredible logo made out of fabric, and a Wonder Woman logo that I made earlier. It was the same idea with the Wonder Woman. I have the gold fabric, which loves to fray, actually. It's very thin and flimsy. I didn't want to be messing around with it, so I had this fusible interfacing, which I ironed on to the back of the gold fabric, a big square of it, all interfaced. And then the exact same thing as this, I had my pattern, pinned it down, cut it out. But then to get these lines I cut out these pieces. So the edge is cut out like this. And then I took the pattern off. Like I have it here, it's off the fabric. And I cut along these lines. Like that. Something like that. And then I put this over the fabric like this and traced the edge with a very light Sharpie. So I traced that, and then I did it again with this lower W. I cut that out, set it there, traced that line in order to get those lines onto the logo. I haven't decided yet if I'm just going to paint these in or if I'm going to sew with the black thread over these lines to help darken them up. But at least they're there on the logo, so I know that's where they should be. So we have Superman and Incredibles and Wonder Woman, and now we're going to go to the sewing machine and we're gonna sew these on our t-shirts. Alright, I have my sewing machine, I have my thread. For this one we're going to be doing yellow, black, orange, red, and white thread. But since I have a lot of to do and I don't want to be changing my bobbin the whole time, I'm just going to keep my bobbin thread white, and I'm just going to be changing my top thread, because basically all I'm going to do is I'm going to do a zigzag stitch over the edge in my top threads just to seal them down. I have some test fabric here that I'm going to use to test my zigzag stitch. This is scraps of this exact same fabric that I used here, so I know exactly how it'll work. One thing to note, I did get some like liquid stitch fabric glue, and because these pieces are so small and so finicky, I just kind of wanted to tack them in place with some glue so that I could sew around them without messing with needles in these tiny little pieces. I didn't need to do that for the Incredibles one because these pieces are bigger, but these tiny little finicky pieces needed to be glued down. So I'm using red first, so I'm going to thread my machine with a red top thread first. I don't want to be too tight because then it'll get stiff. But my white underthread does show through a little bit, but that's the sacrifice I'm making to not have to switch out my bobbin every single time. I do want to make sure that the edge of my zigzag is going over the edge of the fabric to try to prevent any fraying in the future. I really don't know why I chose to start with the hardest logo. I should have just done Wonder Woman first, because that would have been a whole lot easier. fabric was starting to get a little bubbly and warped, and that's because I was so excited about my genius idea to tack down the finicky pieces with fabric glue that I forgot that pins exist, and that I could have pinned it in place also, but because I didn't, the fabric did start to get a little bumpy. In the future, I will remember that pins exist for a reason. Threads are starting to get a little out of control. I probably should stop and cut them off, but I'm not going to. And here we have one Superman logo all sewn together. The threads are kind of ridiculous, and I will have to trim those up. But about the luckiest thing in the world just happened to me. My bobbin thread ran out just as I finished the final stitch, which has never happened to me before. It usually always runs out when I have like an inch left to go, so that was kind of exciting. I'm going to set that aside and trim it later, and I'm going to move on to the Incredibles logo. The problem with this one is that because I'm sewing it onto the shirt and I'm going to outline it all, I don't want to outline through this eye. I actually want to put the yellow outline all the way around the eye. So I'm not going to put these pieces together. I'm going to sew these pieces together and sew the white onto the yellow. And then when I put it on the shirt, I'm going to sew this piece onto the shirt first, and then I will sew these pieces on to the shirt on top of it. After rethreading my bobbin with more white, I decided to do the yellow and white circle before I moved on to the black, since I already had the white in as the top stitch, and this time I remembered to use pins. This circle done, time to move on to the black and the orange. Again, I left my bobbin thread white just for the simplicity of the amount of colors I was changing. Flattening out and pinning it, and flattening out and pinning it to hopefully avoid making a big black bubble. The Incredibles logo is still in pieces, but it's at the point where I'm ready to put it on a shirt. I made one extra Wonder Woman logo so I could figure out how I wanted to do the black lines, if I wanted to Sharpie them in, paint them in, or at this moment I'm testing to see what it looks like if I sew them on. After my super cheap black thread snapped again, I took a look at it and decided I actually didn't like it very much, and I'm probably just going to go over it with a thicker Sharpie. Because at this point I realized that my black thread kept snapping, not because it's super cheap, but because I threaded it wrong. Because I'm a genius. So now the logos are all sewn together. As much as I will be doing, the threads are tidied up, cleaned up. I also went over the Wonder Woman logos again with a thicker Sharpie, so which I think makes them look a whole lot better. And now it is time to add them to our t-shirts. So I'm going to start with the Incredibles, because that's going to have to be done with 2 layers. First I'm going to sew on the orange and black, and then I'm going to add the yellow eye afterwards. And here is our red shirt. I want to make sure I don't pin it to both sides. I'm going to find the center and mark it and pin it in place and then sew it on. Marking the center of the Incredibles logo and matching it up with the center that I've marked on the t-shirt. As you can see, I didn't pull out any measuring tape and get any exact measurements. I just kind of eyeballed it, held it up to my chest, figured out where I wanted it to be, shifted it, and just went like that until I was happy with where I was located. You want to make sure you're only sewing through one side of the t-shirt. You don't want to accidentally sew your logo onto the front and back of your t-shirt. Make sure I'm keeping it as flat as possible while I'm going around it, which is kind of hard to do because a t-shirt is a lot of stretchy material to move around. Take the t-shirt off, take the pins out, and there we go. I'm committed now. This t-shirt will never be the same again. Time to add the yellow eye part of the Incredibles, so I am switching to my yellow thread. Flipping a giant t-shirt around your sewing machine while trying to sew a circle is really annoying. By pulling on the bobbin thread, you're able to pull a top thread through to the back. I just use a little pin to grab that loop and pull it all the way through so I can tie knots on the back side of the fabric. There we go, one incredible looking t-shirt. Now I just gotta do the same thing with Superman and Wonder Woman. I am all done sewing, and here we go. We have Wonder Woman, we have the shirt and the cape, we have Superman, and we have Mrs. Incredible. And because I was switching out so many colors, I left my bobbin thread white when I was doing the top stitching for these ones. You can tell if you look closely, you can see the white poking through. And though it looks fine and it works just great, it was a little lazy of me, and so it's not quite as clean and sharp as it could be. So when I did the Wonder Woman ones, I actually did switch out my bobbin thread for black, and it looks a little cleaner. There we go. Superhero logo t-shirts. Pretty quick to do, pretty easy, and we're ready for Halloween.